My guess is that pretty much everyone listening today does a good amount of traveling, whether that is personal trips or fam trips. We utilize travel as a way to not only fill our own passions, but to educate ourselves and also educate and inspire our audiences and our clients. But do you have an actual strategy for how you share your travels? I'm Brianna, the owner of Milk and Honey Travels, and this is a podcast for us by us where we have deep conversations with honest answers. Nothing is off limits here. Thank you for being here, and let's dive in. So today I'm so excited to chat with Julie Patterson of Wonderfully Planned and Kate Sullivan of Anthology Travel. Both are no strangers to the podcast and have shared their brilliance with us before. They're also members of the Advisor Accelerator, and beyond all of that, all of our professional connections. You guys are just great humans that I enjoy the company of. So I'm excited to chat today and kind of dive into this topic. I know you guys both do an incredible job of sharing your travels because I follow the both of you and I get inspired and I kind of like light up and learn new things and like feel, oh, wow, this is so cool. So it's so interesting to see destinations through your eyes, but also because I do what you do, see how you're kind of using your travels to inspire your audience and what you choose to share and how you choose to share it. So today, I think I just want to dive in to giving people a kind of like inside look as to your thought process, why you do what you do, and how to kind of give people ideas on how to set themselves up for success. Because what I think a lot of travel advisors do is like they take the fam trip, they go on the personal trip or what have you, and it's kind of like, here's me at the Eiffel Tower, here's my room tour, and that's it. And for all of the things that they're gaining personally, I feel like there's so much ROI that they're missing out on by not really taking advantage of all the things that can come with really being strategic with planning out how you share your travels and all of that. So let's kind of just start with like a little intro and backstory, kind of like how you got into this industry and what made you so kind of like good at sharing your travels and kind of like making that a priority when you travel. Julie, let's start with you.
Well, I feel like I've given the whole like who I am and how I got into this industry 1,000 times. But yeah, I'm Julie. I'm super excited to be here. I've been a travel advisor for going on 4 years now. I think what has surprised me about this business is I've always I would never say I'm artsy. I cannot draw anything. I'm terrible at painting, but I would say I'm pretty creative. And I think one of the ways that I find creativity and passion in that is photography. So I've been surprised in building this business, how much I've really enjoyed the marketing and social media side of things. And I think for me, part of that is because I get to share my own content and art via social media. And it's a passion and a hobby and a skill that pairs really well with our jobs as travel advisors, because it is helpful to market these experiences and to show people, what these destinations and what these type of travels really have to offer. So,
yeah,
I hope that answers your question.
No, it totally does. And I think that I love that you say that because I feel Kate and I have been in this industry a little bit longer, but what I've always said, even from the beginning of my career, is that it's really important to lean into your strengths. Like there's so much that comes with time, but there's also so much that that you are strong in when you start out. And when you lean into that, you kind of have the ability to take those assets that you already have that doesn't need to be like, I'm such an expert in this destination, or I'm so connected and have the best relationships in the industry. Like those things come with time. But what you did have was that sense of creativity and the ability to kind of like showcase destinations and share passions through that. And so you're utilizing that to kind of like springboard, what you're doing on the marketing side, which is really, really cool. And Kate, how about you?
I'm so happy to be here, both of you. Thanks for having me. So yeah, as you mentioned, I've been doing this since 2017. I've been I think a little bit more all over the place with marketing than either of you two have been. I mean, Brianna, like you're one of the first people I started following on Instagram.
Same. I Insta stalked you so hard at first.
I love that. Like my husband asked me to set him up an Instagram account at some point, and like you were one of like 5 people that I followed on his account so that he could see how to do it and like sort of understand like how a well-run Instagram account works. I think I'm a little more just like throwing spaghetti at the wall than you two are in terms of strategy. And even to the extent that I've hired someone last fall to sort of handle the strategy and execution for me. So I can speak to that piece a little bit
Yeah.
later, because that's been really helpful to just take that off I'm at a point in the business where like I can support that, and it's been really nice to have that taken off my plate. But I still have like creative control and direction over it. And I think, like Julie, I'm a really creative person,
Yeah.
but I'm not someone who can take a blank piece of paper and create something magical out of it. I'm a better editor and kind of curator.
Yeah,
So,
curator would be the exact word that I would use for you. And so I love that this conversation is happening with the three of us, because it's all of us at like different points of being on this journey, but also all of us seeing the importance of it. Because like you said,
mhm,
like you might have started following me like years ago, but I will be honest with you, is like the first thing that suffers when I get busy and I'm overwhelmed and I have so much business is like that, right? And so in my mind, I got all the skills and the tools and the understanding of why this is
Vision.
important. Oh, my vision is amazing.
Yeah.
And then my execution has fallen flat lately, but I know the importance of it. And so, like for Kate, like you, it's like I know that I can afford to outsource, but at the same time, you still have to have the vision there for it to be a
mhm,
successful venture. You can't just, because we see that, right? Like we see when, like, yeah, you paid for a social media manager or you did this, but like it's just super generic, or it doesn't have a point of view, or it's not sharing in a way that's connecting with your audience. And so, therefore, again, like you're putting something out there, which is great, definitely better than nothing at all. But is it giving you the ROI that you hope it will? Maybe not,
mhm,
because it's just very, like I said, it doesn't have that deeper understanding of what matters, what connects, all that good stuff. So I love that. So yeah, it comes naturally for us, but kind of in different ways, which is all good. Like I said, leaning into our strengths and all that kind of stuff. So let's kind of chat about, I want to kind of go through this in a little bit of a sequential order. Um, we're going to talk about like why this is important, and then kind of how we set ourselves up for success before we even travel, because that's super important. It is, whenever there's a strategy, there really needs to be an actual strategy. And then kind of like actual doing it. Like, what do we do while we're traveling? How do we actually make this happen? I get this question a lot, and I'm sure you guys do too. Like, who the F is taking your pictures? Or like, what? And I'm
mhm,
like, you don't even know what I will put my phone on, what I will set up a tripod to do, what I will force my husband to be a part of. Like, it's a whole thing. So all of that. And then the after, not only just the ride after, but the like long-term game after. So I
mhm.
think all of this important is kind of we had this conversation. So let's just start with first kind of the importance of why this matters. Chat with me a little bit about kind of like your, up to this point in your business, your understanding of like, okay, if I share my travels well, how's this going to help me in my marketing efforts? Whatever comes to mind.
I mean, I would say there's an immediate ROI.
Mm,
Like anytime I'm showing myself in a destination, it immediately becomes more accessible and understandable to
mhm.
following. Um, and I think, provides a certain amount of credibility too with clients that like they've seen you there. And I think there's just automatically like a little bit of a boosted trust factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, like, even if I agree with Kate, like, we often hear other travel advisors talking about, like, well, I don't see ROI, like, by you utilizing social media. And I don't experience that personally. And I don't just view ROI as like, did I go to Ireland and then did I come home and have 6 inquiries to Ireland? Like, I mean, that's amazing. And if that happens, great. But there's more to it than that too. Like, I'll post a story or I'll post a thing, and then you're getting messages and responses and DMs, and it just furthers that conversation and that like know, like, and trust between you and these clients. And so maybe they aren't going to call you to book for Ireland, but then you're top of mind and they're going to call you for something else. So, and like Kate said, I think if they can see you there, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, not only does she know that destination, so I'm going to call her, but they can start to like picture themselves in those
Mhm,
photos, in those videos, and they start to be like, dang, I want to do that.
Right, right. So it's really about, what I agree with you on is that it's really about us being able to tell a story when we're traveling. Because what some advisors do, because maybe they think, like you said, I'm not good at social media. I hate being on camera, all of this stuff. And so you take a trip or you say yes to a fam, and like you're gaining the information and the education for yourself, right? So you're learning about the destination, you're having the supplier relationships go deeper, you're understanding, oh, this is a good fit for this client, this is a good for that client. All of that is good. And it's only, I think, part of the purpose of going on these trips. The other part, the marketing aspect, is if when you choose not to really be strategic and intentional on how you share, is you miss out on being able to inspire people, being able to kind of show them your particular point of view in travel and what matters. And kind of like, even like attracts like, you're doing a lot of really great attracting and repelling. Like if somebody really is like, why in the world would I be interested in a bathtub? Why does it matter? Like at the spa, like they would be like,
I
okay,
feel attacked.
right. Yeah. Well, then good. They know not to call you, right? Because it's like you're showing your point of view. You're not just saying, hey, I love travel. You're sharing, this is what matters to me. This is what I find valuable. This is what I want to curate for you. And you're able to show that so helpfully, is that a word? Whatever. You're able to show that really well. And that's going to really attract people who are like, that matters to me too. She totally gets me. Oh my gosh, I'm so drawn to this. So it's a really great like attract and repel, I think.
I think all three of our personalities come through in our social media.
Yeah.
Whether or not we're, super strategic about that or not, like we and that's not something that I see in every travel advisor's presence and profile. And it doesn't mean that our face, we're sitting there talking to the camera like, oh my God, look at me drinking my, thing by
like
the pool.
hashtag
Like you don't have to
influencer.
do that.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to do that. And I find too, when we talk to other advisors about like why maybe they don't, like why there are crickets, like after their travels, like, oh, I didn't know you went to whatever. It comes down to like this strategy piece, which I think if you have that, it makes this whole thing a lot easier. But also it's this, like, they don't feel confident in maybe the content that they're capturing, like the quality of it, or the fact that it's like inspiring or engaging, and they don't really know what to say, and they don't have the time. But if, again, like once we get into kind of this deeper strategy piece, if you really can take some time before you go to put together this plan, the execution piece can like happen in less than a day.
Right.
And you could have a month's worth of stuff scheduled and pieced out,
And wouldn't that feel good? It's like, it's the longevity of like like how long the thing that you do for the week or the 10 days or whatever, like how long of a life that it has if you do it well. So I think hopefully this conversation can just encourage people that like, okay, this is something that I can lean into a little bit more, because you're going on the trip regardless, right? It's not like you're going to sit home and not travel because you don't know how to share your travels or get on social media or, create content for your blog or what have you. You're going to do the trip regardless. We're just saying, hey, like, let's think through what can make this more beneficial and have you see more success from the thing that you're already doing. So
the strategy piece too, like, gets me almost as excited about the trip as like actually planning the trip, because we'll talk about like how I kind of use social media to start planning my strategy, but it's like I'm getting to see these different things, these different places through the eyes of all these different photographers and content creators, and then I'm like stoked to do that thing and to capture that content. So I think like switching your mindset from being like, oh, I have to do this, to like, this is fun. Like Kate and I went to Ireland last year and we had a blast capturing the content of this. And I think that you guys feel the same, but like, I love to share and show what we're doing. It's like, we have this passion for showing the world to people. And so I actually love the fact that I get to spread that message, I guess.
Yeah. Same. It's funny because I was thinking about, like for the year and a half or so where we didn't have any content to take or share, I was like, man, I went to the park and I was like, how can I share this in a way that's inspiring? Like literally.
Right. Here's the cat. Okay.
Yeah. What's the angle here? Taking a road trip, guys. Let's make this luxury. But yeah, so I
Yeah.
agree
Well, but
with you.
I do think that's important though, because so much of what you're trying to showcase is your personality, your point
Right.
of view, like the way you approach the world. Like I just had a consult yesterday with somebody who was like, we're still really COVID cautious. And one of the
Mm,
reasons that we are comfortable working with you is you are really vocal about how you feel about COVID and the way that the world is or isn't engaging with that right now.
mm.
And so, yeah, maybe I'm repelling some people who are like, COVID's not real or like no vaccines or whatever. Like, I don't care. I don't need that client. Like I'm
Yeah.
pulling in the clients who are aligned,
Right.
you know.
Right. Yeah. So showcasing your personality, which I always say, this is another thing I always say. I mean, Julie, you're a fantastic photographer. I am not. I am like basic Betty over here with my iPhone. But the thing about it is that like their travel content in and of itself is like the most thing that you're going to get on social media, like at a high level. I'm not trying to compete on is my photos or are my videos at the same caliber as Condé Nast, as you know what I mean? Like there are
Yeah.
people who are putting out phenomenal travel content. If that's where it
Yeah.
is, that if that's like what my goal is to compete with that, I lose. I lose every time. My iPhone, I still have an iPhone 12. I'm not even at 14 yet. Like I'm not winning there. So the thing is, it has to be your personality. It has to be your point of view that shines through because if you're just trying to put out travel content, you're at
You're
the
going to get
bottom of the
lost.
barrel there.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if I want to just
Yeah.
be inspired by some pretty pictures, I'm following way better accounts. You know what I
Oh, 1000%. Like I just went to Africa and I like my photos, but then I look at like Nat Geo
Right,
Africa
right,
and I'm like,
right.
okay, well, I suck.
That,
It's
yeah.
not the same level.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not, most of us aren't professionals and you shouldn't try to be. And I think that goes back to kind of your zone of genius too. And there's a couple things like I think it's important we talk about like kind of in the, yeah, like Kate, you just recently hired someone and your social media had I'm loving everything you're posting.
Loving it. I've told her
I
as
love
well.
photography, but I don't love videography. And so I have somebody who helps like put all my reels together because I don't find it fun. I don't find it enjoyable. I don't really need to be
Mhm.
doing it. Doesn't mean that I give up complete control and I don't have like vision anymore, but I'm allowing someone else who it's the same way we plan travel for people that maybe don't know what they're doing or don't have a passion for it. It's like I'm handing that off to somebody who maybe does it better than I do so that
Mhm.
I can focus on like what I'm really good at. And I think that's important
Yeah,
for people too. It's like you don't have to do it all
yeah,
either.
Yeah, I think that's so critical. And I think like when you're starting, there's different phases, right? Like when you're first starting your business, like, yeah, you're going to have to do it yourself, but you don't have to be perfect. All you have to do is, kind of think about what it is that you're trying to get across and try different things. Like you
yeah.
don't have to
Your audience
even be good
also
at it right out the gate.
right. I always have found that my audience tells me what they want more of. Like
Mhm.
very, very clearly, like when there's crickets, I'm like, yep, that was not interesting to you. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm like, y'all want to see this amazing, whatever it is. And yeah, like so they will tell you what they're excited about. Like they're following along, just being like encouraging, like give us more, tell us more. That's
Yeah.
so interesting. So listen, because they're giving you the best feedback that you could actually get. It's like legit what they want to see. They'll tell you. Okay, so let's kind of go into that next phase of how we prepare beforehand. So this is kind of like I said, the real strategy piece, because of course,
Yeah.
while you're on the trip, yes, you should be capturing content, but to have an idea of what you're going to capture, why you're going to capture it, and how to just kind of set yourself up for success. Because we all know when there's a plan, it's far easier to follow that than kind of just be like, wing it. Like, let's see what's
Hmm.
inspiring today. That usually doesn't go very well and doesn't go very far, but it also doesn't make sure that you hit the goals that you've already set out that are important to you. So, talk to me a bit, both of you, just kind of like how you prepare beforehand when you're going on a trip and setting up all of this strategy and all of this like idea, like just how you bring it to life.
Yeah. Like what's the workflow?
Yeah.
Do you want me to
Well,
start, Kate, or you want to start?
I'm going to start because this is going to be 90% of Julie Patterson's show. So I'm just going to get my 10%.
She's like, the script we
Here
wrote out.
yeah, here is the spreadsheet. Yeah.
It's
Right.
like strap in, everybody. Here we go.
Right. This is the content you've been waiting for after I talk for 1 minute and 30 seconds. So what I will do is so I have a fam trip to Greece in May that Julie and I are doing. And we haven't talked yet about strategy and kind of like workflow and how we're going to do this. But I have been like, I've been trying to buy my flights. So I've been looking at the schedule there pretty closely and trying to pinpoint like the points in the day that will have time to actually create content, because you have to set time aside for it. It can't just be a thing where you're like, oh, I'll just take a picture while I'm there. Like, you need to give it, like we have one afternoon at leisure in Athens. We're going to go on an Acropolis tour and do a food tour in the morning. Then we have the afternoon free. And then we have a dinner cocktail thing probably starting at like 8. So I'm guessing we'll have maybe 4 to 5 hours. We may want to get a site inspection in there. We may want to actually like, I don't know, stop and have a drink, like do Athens, but we'll have like a window of time that we probably need to spend at least an hour or two taking photos and videos. And so and I think this is what Julie will get into a little bit more in depth, is kind of figure out like where in Athens do we want to be so we can quickly get ourselves there, do it efficiently, capture what we need to, and then move on to the next thing. Particularly if the next thing is a hotel and we have like an appointment with an actual person and we have to be there at a specific time. Like Julie does a great job with this, but my social person has given me a shot list before every trip I've taken since September of things that she's like, this would be really helpful if you could capture these like 6 things at every hotel. And then while you're walking around, if you could get these 10 other things.
I love that.
I have not been great about fulfilling all of those desires that she has stated, but
it's good to have it in mind. Yeah, it's great to have
it in mind. It's just like a Google Doc that she's put together. So it's something I can just quickly refer to and be like, oh, I'm at a hotel, especially if you're somewhere where like the director of sales is like, or whoever's taking you around is like, seems pretty chill and you've got a good rapport and maybe they're a little bit younger and they're going to take some great photos. Like, to be like, hey, I just need like 2 seconds of myself running up the steps here into the front door, or hey, we're having a coffee. Can you just grab a shot of me? Like,
yeah. It's not like the 72-year-old like,
or as is always the role, find a teenager and ask them to take photos for you. But I think like the main thing is like just having a plan so that you're not going in cold and not getting because it's really easy, I think, to get caught up in just like, where am I? I'm lost. I'm wandering. I don't know where I am. Like, or I'm at a hotel. I've got to pay attention. Like, what are the room categories? What's this restaurant about? Like, what are they telling me? And to forget about the content capturing piece. And because there are 2 really different parts of your brain, right? Like the analytical part of your brain is the one that's being like, okay, they have 117 keys and like these rooms connect and like this bar is brand new and like here's the thing I'm supposed to remember about that. And then the creative part of your brain is the part that's supposed to be like, oh wait, we need to stop, pause, take a photo, check it, make sure you've got what you need, fine, switch back to the other side of your brain. And that kind of switching is really difficult for most people. So I think it can be helpful if you've got the plan, then you can kind of like segment out the time for both things and make sure that you're accomplishing everything that you need to while you're on the trip. Because the other piece we didn't touch on in terms of strategy and the reason that you're doing this is like, you need an ROI for yourself for, that what you're investing in this, but you also need an ROI for the suppliers who you're meeting with. So if there's a DMC hosting your trip, they need to be getting some value out of this. The hotels that are hosting you need to be getting value. Hotels that are taking time out of their day to show you around, they need to be getting value. So
yeah.
And I think the more like it's an interesting thing that has been almost difficult to get across to the social media teams that I've talked to is that I think all of our accounts have 2 markets. One is travelers and then the other is industry people. And like it or not, industry people do, I think, kind of judge you almost more harshly than travelers do on what you're presenting to the world and like what you're showing, and how you're showing up.
Our profiles are portfolios,
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
I was going to say this earlier because you said like sometimes your stuff flops. Like every time I post a client testimonial, I get like 6 likes and it's like, okay, I mean, but it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be posting that, right? This is my entry to whatever. And this is a snapshot of how people are viewing me, whether they're a traveler or, you said, Kate, somebody in the industry.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah. No, I know that. That's very true. I like how your brain works just in terms of like having the shot list and going into like, all right, great. If I'm in this situation, then I know that if this presents itself, opportunity presents itself, I'll be able to capture that. But you already on the front end, you're just like, your brain is already thinking that way because you kind of like set it up. Like here, the things, and you have somebody kind of helping you even on the front end of that, kind of say, no, these are the things that would be helpful. My creative brain is
Mhm.
already thinking what I could do with like a shot of this or a video of this or you doing this, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera. And does your social media person also help you with kind of come up with the ideas of like, hey, you're going to showcase, whatever, like the actual like written content or point of view stuff, or is that all you? Like what you kind of want to share about your experience
About
with it.
that's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 I think that could be kind of an it depends, Kate. Like, and you
Mhm.
can correct me if you disagree, but like, obviously, if we experienced something, there's no way that someone else could write about, this experience in the way that we can. However,
Mhm.
if it's a post that's more like maybe when the best season is to travel, we could
Yeah.
give them a little bit of direction, but they can kind of
Mhm.
find that information. So I think it's like an it depends on the
Mm.
copy.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know if you
Yeah, for sure, and who you're working with. Like, it's collaborative for sure. But the general direction about like why I want to talk about something or what I think is important about a specific destination or a specific property, like that's coming from me. And I
Mhm.
found that those are the things where like I, I'm just like constantly fact checking her if I just am like, here, write about this. Like it's just not accurate because hasn't done it.
That's not,
So
this isn't what she does for a living. So it's like, it's
right.
fine. Or
Yeah.
it could be,
It's a good starting point.
yeah, it could
good thing
even
we're
be
great
Let me put it
true.
that way.
editors.
Yeah. It could even be true. It just might not be like what you want to tell your audience. Like
Yeah.
that could be
Yeah.
interesting for somebody else, but it's not going to be what Kate shares with you.
Yeah. It's not relevant for my specific market.
Right, right,
So
right.
yeah.
All right, cool.
Um,
That's fantastic. Julie, give us your goods. Give us your
Okay.
approach to how you set up
whew.
dig in everybody. Pour your glass of wine.
Lay-
So two things I want to say about what Kate said.
Okay.
One is please realize that it's really, really, really hard to do it all. Like Kate was saying, it's two separate sides of your brain. And not only that, but like taking all of the video and all of the photos is really hard. So if you are on a fam with other people, I have found it so extremely valuable and helpful to find kind of another friend on this trip who maybe first off they have to be willing, but second off maybe they also care about content and content creation, and to be like, okay, listen, I'm really great at photography, so I will focus on making sure we capture all of the static stuff in this hotel or on this experience, and I'll take photos of you, you take photos of me, and you take on the task of like maybe taking all the video. We create a shared album at the end and we share that content. I have found that extremely valuable because honestly, I can't sit there and take all the photos and then quick switch over to my phone and then switch. It's like it's too much to handle. So I recommend
Finding
working
yourself a
together as a
buddy.
team.
Yes. Find
Yeah,
yourself a
find yourself
buddy.
a buddy.
Mhm. I highly recommend having Julie Patterson be your buddy and take all your photos. And then
That's when you're
you can
really
take the
ready.
B-roll video on your phone
There you
and do a
go.
little swapsy, which is not at all equitable.
Please. Reels are where it's at, so it is equitable. But the other thing Kate was talking about is like really knowing your itinerary ahead of time and looking at kind of like not only the places in the day where you have time to maybe capture additional content, but like what are we doing, where are we staying, what things are we seeing, so that you can look at those things on their websites, on social media, and start to see, like I was talking about, like how are other people seeing these places, how are they capturing content, what do you like, what don't you like, so you can kind of use that and recreate it as opposed to having to reinvent the wheel. Like if you were to walk into a hotel blind, having not done any research or looking at how they maybe portray themselves, it's like you might miss a lot of what's really cool about it and really cool content opportunities, whether it's a really cool stairwell or maybe a really cool afternoon tea set up in front of a really beautiful window. And if you had known that ahead of time, you could have easily gotten that and not come home and been like, oh shoot, I missed that,
Yeah.
Another thing about like the schedule is thinking about time of day and lighting. So oftentimes when we're doing certain things, it's, middle of the day and it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to Greece and I'm going to be on this Acropolis tour, like I know that the washed out pictures of the Acropolis probably are not going to be like the best. And what I want is pictures maybe at, the golden hour in the morning or at sunset. So how can I find time, my own time? Do I have to wake up early before things to go on like a walkabout around town to
Mhm.
capture things with less people and better lighting? And also, like, if you want to be in the content, like you might have to get up earlier to kind of get some of the shots that you might want at the Trevi Fountain or whatever it is
Yeah.
to.
Mhm.
So I think that's
Slash
important too.
not look haggard at 1 p.m. in like,
You still like your hair and outfit at that time.
right.
So yeah, so going back to kind of social media. So before I'm going on a trip, I'm obviously scrolling, every day on social. So anytime I see a reel or a post or a caption or something relating to that trip, I'm saving it. And I'm saving it into a folder labeled that destination so that I don't have to go search through everything I've saved and try to find that. So that makes that easier. Then when I'm ready to go, like I said, I go look at all of these specific places. So I'll look at the Acropolis. I'll look at the hotel we're staying at. I'll look at the hotels we're visiting. I'll look at, the different destinations throughout the thing. And I will screenshot or save these different photos or whatever that I like.
Mhm.
Then I take all of that and I add all these screenshots to my notes app. And I've broken it down like by day or destination. So like when Kate and I were in Dublin, I had a whole section of all of these ideas of content I would have wanted to create in Dublin. It's impossible to remember everything you saw on social media and
Right.
what you're going to need to capture. And I also have a shot list the same way Kate does, where I'll write down kind of some of these things that I want, but sometimes the words don't spark your brain the same way as like the photo does. So I think having the different sections to be able to quick in the morning when you wake up, like I look at them and I'm like, oh yeah, can't forget, like I really want that photo. So
Mm.
then it's top of mind for me when we're doing that activity for the day. And it's like a reference point,
Right.
I also have a list of questions prior to leaving that I know I'm going to write content about when I get back. So it might be like around certain experiences. It might be around transportation. It might be around certain hotels or the food in the destination, like what people can expect, or souvenirs. So in terms of a specific shot list for each maybe hotel or each destination, I also kind of know that I need to capture content around these 10 common themes. Food, for example, it's like I know I want pictures or videos of the actual things, of drinks, of myself eating the things, of myself eating, of cheersing, of whatever, because that's going to help you
Mhm.
put together these reels when you get home and not feel like you came home with nothing, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. And I think,
Yeah. And I just want to interject that like, you cannot feel shy about that.
right.
Like you cannot
Get
feel
over it.
like,
Who
oh, I feel like
cares?
an asshole, like taking a photo of my food. Like nobody cares. Forget it. Get over it. Like,
You are running a business. You're doing it because you're a
yeah.
professional, not because you're vain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say this because I think that if you're on the far end of the spectrum, meaning that like you've never done any of this and this seems overwhelming, that's fine. You don't need to do all the things, but hopefully what you're doing is taking away something that you can do. So, for instance, like if you're like, you know what, I really would love to share like the best meal I had in Athens, or, like uh, how to take the ferry from one island to another. All of this content idea that, like, if you've thought about it beforehand, you're like, this is something that I do want to share with my audience. Then it's top of mind to be like, hey, get video doing this, get some photos doing this. Just that, like, quick, it doesn't need to be like super detailed if you're not there yet, but just the idea of like, thinking ahead of what you do want to share and making sure you capture something that will help you do that easily. Because I think a lot of times, especially for something like Reels, people are like, I don't have that kind of stuff in my phone. Like taking B-roll is something anybody can do at all times. And you don't even really need to have the exact, like, here's exactly what I'm going to use, the exact, audio that I'm going to pair it with, etc. But you do have to start
I literally
collecting.
had a
Go ahead. What?
I literally had a 10-year-old do this on my Christmas trip. Like,
Right.
and it was fine. She's not amazing at taking video,
Right.
but
But she
like,
got it and it's good enough and you're able to use it. So you
right.
just need to start
Yeah.
having the mindset that you are collecting content in order to share these ideas and this insight and this education with your audience in a way that like nobody's going to just read a text about like, I mean, you can write it, but it's far more valuable when you have like the photos and the videos that help support what you're trying to share. So start small, but just start.
And write it down, because if you expect it to live in your brain and to remember it,
Mhm.
remember all these things while you're gone, it's not going to happen. And the other thing too, Brianna, that made so whenever you save all of these things, you're usually scrolling on Instagram on your phone, right? And you
Mhm.
click the save and it goes into a folder and you can look at it. But if you actually go to the Instagram website on your computer, you can copy and paste the link to that reel or to that post.
Oh,
That's what I add into my notes app. So I'll add the
fabulous.
reel, like I'll
Okay.
add the website link,
Yeah.
write a little heading to remind myself, like,
What
what
it
was this
is.
again?
Right.
Then I kind of
Mhm.
have a little bullet pointed shot list underneath. But that way I can click on that reel for 10 seconds. I can rewatch it and be
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, that
That's
was
what
the
it is.
angle that that
Yeah.
girl was doing, blah, blah, blah. And then I can recreate that with
Yeah.
like small amount of brain space.
Fabulous. I love that idea. And I did not know that. So, yeah, from your computer.
So I
Okay.
save everything on my phone, but then when I'm
Go to your
actually kind
computer.
of doing
Yeah.
this plan, I'm doing it on my computer. It just makes it easier for me. So
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So yeah, so we go into the trip with just this idea of like, here's what we want to share. Here's what we need to do. Here's what we are going to kind of like make sure we have time for. Here's the days that it's going to happen, all of that stuff. So you're looking at your itinerary, you're coming up with the ideas, you're having the lists, and then you're able to kind of go into the trip like prepared for what you're going to do on the marketing side. That is a very crucial part of this whole experience. So let's just chat about now you're there. And I think we're already kind of like talking about it and getting
can I
into
say
it.
one more thing before
Yeah,
we
you
move
sure
to the
can.
next part?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Take me back. Take me
So
back.
I think part of content creation, like engaging content or whatever, people are very visual. And this is why Instagram, TikTok, like this is why these apps are successful, is because people like looking at nice, pretty, inspirational things. Your clients, your audience is no different. So I look back at photos I took, when I was in college, like backpacking through Europe, and I'm in Nike athletic shorts and a literal t-shirt, like a sports t-shirt. And I'm thinking, well, times have obviously changed, but like, what was I doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
And even trips more recently, it's like when I didn't put time and effort into thought kind of into the whole picture, I ended up coming home being disappointed and feeling like I didn't have the content I really wanted to be able to showcase the experience I really wanted to showcase. So again, we're professionals. This isn't because we're vain, but like the clothing goes into kind of the vibe of this experience that you're trying to portray. And if that's something that's important to you, I also use Instagram, Pinterest, and blogs to kind of look at like, okay, what are other girls wearing at this time of year? Like, what's the fashion like in this certain place? Like, how can I kind of fit into this vibe? Because I like I said, I tend to like the photos better. So this is a content and packing tip. But then when I'm figuring out outfits, I take a picture of myself in that outfit before I go, and then I again have like a notes thing that will break it down day by day. And I have the picture, I insert it into the notes app so that I can see like, okay, Monday while I'm touring the Acropolis, like I'm gonna wear this dress. So it helps me again take away any like extra thinking while I'm trying to get ready for the day and figure things out. But it also helps packing. I pack
Mm.
a lot less because I know exactly what I'm wearing every day. And again, I come home with content that I actually like. And this is not because I'm sponsored by them, but I wish I was. But Newly is like a clothing rental. So they have all these brands and all these really amazing clothes and fun clothes that can help you like fit the vibe of the place that you're going without having to spend a ton of money for clothes that, you know, that I'm going to wear in Greece isn't necessarily what I'm going to wear in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I
Right.
don't need
Right.
to live in
You
my
want to
closet.
own that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's another
Yeah.
thing to
I
play around
have
with too.
I have a Rent the Runway subscription, like just ongoing. I never stop it because I like, whatever trip I'm coming up, I'm like, yeah, what do I need for that? So that's
Yep.
really good. And also just kind of like to take the thought of, you know, if you are selling luxury travel, for instance, and you want to have this luxury vibe in your photos, like maybe that isn't like your normal, like go out and see the city attire, right? But can you put together an outfit that kind of like does fully like and capture what you want it to and be a good representation of your brand? which, it's fine. I think that that's like really, really smart, especially when you're doing like the professional photos and stuff like that, which we'll talk about in, like, I
Mhm.
think coming up. When I am hiring a photographer, I am thinking of that whole thing. Like, I usually don't
Mhm.
want what's in my closet for that. I want something
Well, and
very
also
like
like,
curated.
yeah, are those colors gonna pop? Like, is that gonna
Yeah.
drape properly? Like,
I wear black on
I
black on
love a
black.
wide leg.
So yeah.
I was so crushed when Julie was like, "You can't bring a black raincoat to Ireland," and I was like, "Literally everything I own is black." And she's like, "No, it has to be blue or red." And I was like, "All right, here's a red one." And
But she loves her photos.
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
obviously was correct. It looks great. So, do you want to? Should we talk about tools really quickly?
Yeah. Okay.
Like, and by that I mean like photographers. Like,
Yeah.
how do you find
Right.
people?
No, that's really good. So this,
How do you take photos of yourself?
right,
Like,
right, because
if you don't have
people
someone.
are very unaware that it's possible to just get the shot and get the stuff like just on your own. Like, even if I'm on a solo
Yeah,
trip, I'm coming back with content. So yeah,
yeah.
let's definitely go into kind of like what we do when we're there and how to get assistance, hire, have somebody help us, but
Mhm.
also what we can do on our own. Um, and let's start with that idea that you just said, like, you never can be shy or embarrassed or anything. Like you might feel a little silly, but get over it. Like,
Mhm.
just get over it. It's
Everyone is
fine.
so concerned about themselves. They
Yeah.
don't really care.
I've
They might
seen the
judge you for
craziest
2
thing.
seconds.
Yeah,
They
and
think
then they're
about you
over it
never again.
ever
Who
again.
cares?
Like, I'm
Yeah.
always like, influencers in the wild, and then I go back to whatever I'm doing. Like, you know what I mean?
And I
Like,
forget about them completely.
so safe
Yeah.
for you, and you're not even doing the crazy thing that those other people are doing. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest thing is to be traveling with a friend who has a decent eye and can take good photos either on an actual camera or with an iPhone. I mean, camera phones are perfectly acceptable
Yeah,
for anything you're going to put on Instagram. You don't necessarily want to use them as like web
website. Yeah,
photos,
yeah,
but the resolution isn't that great. But like, you're fine for Instagram or Facebook.
right. So yeah, so
So I think
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think most of us are aware of Flightographer and Pics Around You, which are two services, many, many cities around the world, where you can hire a professional photographer to do a photo shoot. And those usually start, I want to say at like 300 or 350 maybe for half an hour.
Yeah,
And then it scales up from there.
yeah,
So it's not nothing, but it's, I think, a relatively accessible entry point for people, especially if you're newer and you're somewhere you've never been before.
And if
You're
this
not going to
isn't
get,
your zone of genius, you know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
having somebody else just do this so you don't really have, you're going to come home with a good gallery of yourself in 2 or 3 different outfits in 2 or 3 different places around this city. You have content then to talk about this destination, and you didn't have to stress yourself out for 10 days trying to,
find good photos of yourself
yes,
Yeah,
with a
and do
10-year-old.
all the it sort of shortcuts a lot of the prep work that like Julie just talked about too, because the photographer lives there. They know where to go. Like, they
yes,
know what shots are going to work. They know what angles have worked in the past. They know what the light is going
the
to do
light.
in a certain place. Like, it really is I think, tremendously useful tool to have. I tend to try to find someone who's not a photographer or Pics Around You photographer, if I can. And if I can't, then photographer's been perfectly fine in the past, but the photos that I am in love with and the ones that I tend to use for branding, tend to use for my website, are from like professional photographers who I usually find on Instagram by like
Yeah.
searching hashtags,
Mhm.
like favoriting things from their portfolio that are shots that I would want similar shots, to,
So
and
you
then
can kind
reaching
of
out
put
and seeing
together
if they're
like a mood
available.
board for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So give us
Yeah.
the deets on when you say find them on Instagram, search hashtags. Like, give us like like what hashtag? Rome
Hashtag
Like,
photographer.
Lisbon photographer.
Okay.
yeah, Paris photographer.
Mhm.
Literally. And then you just
And you
look
get a
at all of these
zillion.
different, yeah, you
Right.
get a
There's a
zillion.
lot.
So
Yeah.
then you just look at like which ones kind of have my vibe. You can
Yeah.
also look
Because,
up like wedding, Lisbon wedding photographer or something, because
yep.
they often do other things. But what I really am looking for, because a lot of the photographers that pop up are wedding or couple or whatever. So I try to find somebody that what I'm seeing in their portfolio that like they do lifestyle. So because
Mhm.
then the concept of what I'm looking for isn't so so far-fetched for them. Like, I'm looking maybe to sit at a cafe and I want you to take pictures of me ripping open a croissant and drinking my little thing because I know that I want this for content.
Mm-hmm.
But like Kate said, like, look at their page, save some of their own pictures, save pictures you see from other photographers as well, so that you can put together a mood board so that they kind of understand what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's great. That's great and super helpful. And I think that you're right. I mean, if you just need to start somewhere, that it's fantastic that there's already services out there that make it like the easiest process ever. If you're a bit more particular, yes, about, the style and the aesthetic, there are obviously in definitely in every big city you go. Like maybe it's hard if you're like, oh, I'm going to be on this like small private island. Okay, fine. You're not going to find like this plethora of, options. But, in any big city, there are talented people who can help you. And you're right. I mean, the better quality probably are not gigging with, photographer, I would say. So maybe, but you might find them.
I mean, it's not necessarily not true. Like the photographer I use in DC is somebody we found through Flytographer, and now she does like the headshots for half the people at Deloitte here because she's also a very good headshot photographer. She's doing the wedding for a friend of ours.
Wow,
she's really versatile. But I mean, the nice thing about Flytographer and Pixaround is you can see the portfolios of the photographers on their website. So you can similarly kind of like scan through those and be like, oh, is this mostly families or is this mostly like people where they're all jumping and that's not my thing, or they're all just like straight onto the camera and I want something that's more like candid and, where I'm walking or, do they employ some like creative techniques? Like, are they using
does
reflections?
Their editing style fit with your editing style? Like the mood of your Instagram or whatever.
Yeah. And if you get really stuck, if you're going to like an obscure location and or you just don't have the budget for like the starting photographer package, go to Airbnb Experiences. There are photographers listed there for almost every destination, and it's usually like $100 for an hour. And like the quality that you get may not be as great, but you probably get a larger quantity, and then you may have to do some work on the back end yourself with like editing or cropping or something to get the shots that you want. But
also you can ask a hotel because they would employ photographers for, shoots around the hotel for hotel purposes, but they also, may have people that come in for weddings or whatever kind of shoots. And so they might be able to direct you if it's a smaller location, or maybe, they might be able to direct you to who they would use as well.
That's wonderful. So this is like if you find, somebody and you hire, and then do you have any tips for like, here's how you get shot? Obviously you have a friend, you guys swap or whatever. Are there any things that you do to kind of just be like, here's when it's like, I'm rolling solo dolo, or I'm just, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to make happen. What do you do then?
Shout out to this thing on the back of my phone called Flipstick. It's very heavy, but it like attaches to the back of your phone permanently. And then there's like a little thing that pulls out and it's sticky and you can stick it on anything for you get about a minute and then it falls off. And you just clean it with like an alcohol wipe and it like resuscitates. It's like a Shark Tank thing.
Whoa. I have not.
And then it also acts as like a little tripod too. You can just like use it to kind of prop your phone up on something. So
that is fantastic. I have not heard of that. See, two things I've learned today about that I did not.
Because I'm a real dummy about like taking photos of myself, and this makes it much easier. Like I've tried billion tools, and this one was like $25 on Amazon.
I love it. I love it. I travel with a tripod, like a traveling tripod,
like a lightweight tripod.
Because it's just important. Like if I just want to like talk to camera or do whatever, or if I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to be in my room and I'm going to, go and sit out on the balcony and I just have like, the angle that I need and the height that I need. And I'm not trying to like stack books on top of like,
I was going to say, stacking tables, books and towels also works.
Like, why is this room rearranged? I needed a shot, like.
Why are all the towels in the living room? Yeah.
So, just be okay being creative and doing what you need to do. And at the end of the day, like, I think the point is, how can you best tell the story, right? Like, yes, something could be interesting of like, oh, look at this view. but like you looking at the view is more engaging and more interesting for the audience. So that's
Mhm.
why I think it's like, that's why, not because I'm like, oh, like Julie was saying, like, look at me, I'm so amazing at this beautiful, veranda in the safari, this whatever. But no, it's because it makes for a better story. And you're trying to story tell on social and in your blogs or whatever. And so when you're able to insert yourself in those photos and people are like, oh, now I can see myself doing that. It's a lot
Mhm.
easier than just like, oh, that's a pretty view. Like that's very forgettable. But when you're like, no, I can see myself waking up and having my coffee as, the sun rises over the Serengeti. Like that's what becomes more powerful, I think.
Absolutely.
100% agree.
All right, you guys, we're some talkers, and also we have lots of great ideas and stuff about this conversation. And so, literally, we've only gotten through like how to prepare and what
Yeah.
to do while you're in destination. But I think that there's probably more that we can kind of like really dive deep in, and that's all about sharing and like making this
Mhm.
actually work for you, but so that people don't can get on with their day. I'd love to just kind of like table this for now and come back for a part two so that way we can
Mhm.
really discuss like, hey, how do we make this worthwhile and how do we make it live so much longer than just during the trip and right after the trip, because that's like the real
Mhm.
value is when you can take this content that we've created, and it doesn't matter if you're not going on a trip for the next 3 months. Like this content can really be something that like goes with you. And so I'd love to kind of make sure that we do a part two and kind of make sure that we give people the tools and the way to think through how to be better at sharing their content from their fams and from their travels. Are y'all good with that?
I
I
am
love it.
so down for a part
Yeah.
two. It's
Okay.
unreal.
Good, good, good. Yay. And what's so great? You guys are going to Greece, and the week after, I'm going to Greece. Oh my goodness, we're gonna have so much Greece content.
I love
We're
it.
gonna have like
We
a
should
little.
We can
strategize
compare.
I
together.
know.
We
We
should
can
Well, what I'm
compare.
strategize
gonna do is take your
together.
shot list and then be like, bet I am ready.
We should have a shared album on Instagram where we are adding reels and inspo. We should share the shot list. Why would we reinvent the wheel and do
No,
this all separate?
absolutely
It's
not.
not
Yeah.
worth it.
I know. All right. Well, thank you guys so
I'm
much for
in.
your time and for this conversation. I look forward to part two, and I hope that everybody learned something new today because I sure did. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.